Yeah, so I realize with the way that I title things, it's probably hard for me to actually say bombshell, and people go, "Well, it probably really is a bombshell." You know, one of the downsides of clickbaiting things. But here's the bottom line, dude. Nate Diaz has an expiration date on his contract in 4 months. In 4 months. Now, one thing that I'm going to throw out there is how on earth did they just figure this out right now? Like, how did they just figure this out? Okay, so I've talked about this a bunch on the channel about Francis's contract, how it all works. This is a new thing. It's a new thing that they have end dates on the contract. That is why the Nate Diaz and Francis Ngannou thing is so critical. Like, the outcome of this is going to shape the future of many, many things relating to how fighters interact with the UFC. I will promise you that. Okay? Because historically, fighters didn't have end dates. Okay, so what we're talking about is Nate Diaz has 4 months until the end of his contract. 4 months. Okay, what that means is that if the UFC does not give him a fight by November, he's out of his contract. And I'll tell you a little secret about those contracts. Okay, you don't have to take the fight. The end date supersedes every other thing, is how I've heard that they work. Okay, now this has never been challenged in court, obviously. There's never been this specific type of dispute between the UFC and a fighter, where if they don't fight all the fights on their contract, however, the end date gets there first. But I have heard that the legal opinion is that the end date supersedes any other clause in a contract. And what that basically means is like, okay, you owe us 8 fights, right? Like you owe us 8 fights. And also this contract it expires in November of 2022. Okay, so which clause is the one that supersedes the other, right? So the contract expires in November 2022, and you also owe us 8 fights. Okay, well, I've done 6 fights, and the contract expired at the end of November 2022 or whatever, right? So which one of those things do you still owe the 2 fights, or is the end date the thing that matters? And I have heard the end date is clear as day the thing that supersedes in the contracts, which means that Nate would be a free agent in 4 months either way, whether they give him a fight or they don't give him a fight. And you want to know who definitely knows that? The UFC. Okay? If the contract states it in the way that I've been told that, you know, that this would work, then the UFC legal for sure knows that. Does Nate know that? Probably not. Let me tell you something else Nate doesn't know. Actually, I'll tell you a lot of things. Anyway, before I get into it, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Okay, this is my favorite kind of video to do. I love talking about the business, man. And yeah, this is one of those ones where I'll be curious what you guys. I'm always curious what you guys think. But this is just one of those ones where I don't think unless you work for the UFC, you're gonna have a lot of insight into how this is gonna play out. But I do. In this case, I actually do. I can tell you how this is probably almost certainly going to play out. If this, then that. So if he does this, then that. If he does this, then that. Okay? So let's just get right into it. But before I do, by the way, the sponsor of this video is Yo Kratom. Okay? I say this every single time. People break my balls about that. They're like, oh, why you let Yo Kratom sponsor you? I'm like, because I use Kratom every single day. I mean, I do personally. But I have I'm a troubled person. Okay, if people are basing what they do on what I do, that would be a very, very poor way to approach your life, unless you're trying to figure out how to build a YouTube channel or be too animated about everything. But Kratom is an excellent substitute for a lot of things that are much, much worse, which is why I use it. And if you are a Kratom user, then yokratom.com, YOKRATOM.com. You get kilograms for $60. Okay, do the math on how much you're paying. It is significantly more than this. Significantly more than Yo Kratom. Anyway, so let's just jump into this. Okay, so here's the deal. So Nate wants out of his contract. We all know that. He has been negotiating hard with the UFC. He's been begging them to get out of his contract, right? Give me a fight, give me a fight, give me a fight. And now, all of a sudden, he has an end date in November, right? So his end date is November, like November 2022. That's the end of the contract. All right. So how did you not already know that? If like here's the thing. How did you not already know that if that's the case? Because it's always been there in the contract what your end date is. Do you not have someone who's reading your contracts? And I'm asking seriously because I actually don't think that a lot of fighters have people that read their contracts for things like that. They sign a thing. It says 6 fights. Here's what you're going to get paid per fight. here are the stipulations, whatever, relating to pay and things. You have to fight in this case. You don't have to fight in this case, whatever. I'm sure they know those things backwards and forwards. But here's the deal, dude. There are a lot of managers that are not working in the best interest of their fighters. And I'm not talking about anyone specifically. I'm actually really not. I mean, you guys all know who I think great managers are. I think Ali Abdelaziz is an excellent manager. I think Markel Martin is an excellent manager. But there are a bunch of managers I don't really know, and I know of deals people took. And when I heard the details, I was like, who's managing you? Who could have possibly told you to agree to that? Now, in my opinion, I think some of them kind of work for the UFC, the ones that are not working in the best interest of their clients. But nonetheless, okay. So let's say you have a manager that's not a very good manager. Let's not even say that they're nefarious. Let's just say they're not very good. Right? They're not a very good manager. They kind of slipped on their dick and ended up in a management position because they were like a coach of a fighter. And then they came in there, look, you need a manager. And they end up like managing their fighter. And by managing their fighter, essentially what they do is they take an offer from the UFC and they hand it to their fighter and tell them to sign it. They don't have legal resources. They don't have lawyers look at stuff. They're like, okay, this is the same contract everyone else signed. All right, I guess it's fine. That's not management, dude. Okay? A manager is going to read the contracts, tell the fighter what it means, so that the fighter can make a decision on whether or not they think that this is a good deal that they should take, okay? Because I'm going to tell you right now, the way Nate has behaved thus far is not as a person who knew they had a November end date to their contract. Here's the other thing, though, okay? So my point is, it's very likely that like maybe now he just figured it out. Here's the other thing, though. That end date ain't a real end date. That's not a real end date, okay? It's really not. Because it might be a real end date contractually, right? But if you think the UFC is going to let Nate Diaz, who still has a fight left on his deal and everyone knows it, just go fight, and they're not going to make it ugly in court, I promise. Well, I don't promise, but I would speculate that that's not going to be the case. And I've heard that because Chael has said it on his channel a bunch of times about Francis. Francis fought out all of his fights, though. There's no case there. There's no case in the Francis one. Francis fought all of his contracts. The end date is this date. That's done. Good luck, dude. Good luck. But with Nate, he's got a fight left. Like I said, I am almost positive. Just even saying it out loud, like you have this many fights, but the contract expires on this date. I have seen a million contracts. I have negotiated a million contracts. If the fights supersede the expiration date, I would be absolutely flabbergasted. Okay? Because there used to not be an end date in these contracts. It was put in there to protect the fighters. Okay, so that's kind of the whole point of the end date. So of course it's going to supersede the supersede the other stuff. Because here's the other thing: every time a UFC fighter turns down a fight, they get 6 months added to their contract. Every time they do one of these grappling matches, external grappling matches, they get 6 months added onto their contract. Right? But there now is this universal end date that cannot be extended beyond. Right? And that's what we're talking about. I mean, I haven't seen Nate's contract, but I'm speculating that's what we're talking about, is the universal end date. And now, but like I said, now it comes out and it's like, oh, Nate has an end date in November. So they either have to get him booked, they have to get him to sign a new contract or get him booked, or else he's a free agent in November. Dude, Jake Paul's fighting in August, bro. September, October, November. Nate will be a free agent by then. Now, you can't negotiate until you're out of your contract. That's one thing. Technically, you cannot negotiate until you're out of your contract. That's why when Francis ended up in the boxing ring with Tyson Fury, I remember I was in Cancun. I was in Cancun when that fight happened, and Francis ended up in the ring with Tyson Fury after the Tyson Fury fight, and I was like, no way. And the first thing I thought is I was like, oh, they're going to be in trouble for that. They're going to be in trouble. But the reality is they're not negotiating. Like, they're just going in there just talking, dude. Tyson says he wants to fight Francis. Francis says he wants to fight Tyson. That's just two guys talking, dude. Anyone can say anything like that. Now, if Markel were to, call Tyson Fury's people and they start negotiating a specific contract for Francis that they could put in front of Francis prior to Francis becoming a free agent, that's a completely different thing. Completely different thing. And so with Nate and Jake, they can say back and forth they want to fight. But look, if Nate's going to be a free agent in November, okay, he can be training that whole time. He can be in perfect shape, and they can have a contract they put in front of him November, whatever, if he becomes a free agent. And these guys could be fighting in 2022. Who knows? But if that is correct, if that's real, dude, Like, if that's real, that his end date really is in November, that's a nuclear bomb as it relates to the Nate Diaz situation. Now, I did allude to the fact in a previous video that I said maybe he has an end date that he should be considering, or maybe it's already passed. But the other thing, again, that he needs to consider is just because you're past the end date doesn't mean you're actually going to be a free agent, because the UFC is going to bang with you. Let me just jump ahead of a couple obvious questions. Well, who cares if they sue him if they're going to lose? Right, correct. Yeah, right, normally. Except, can Nate put the fight on by himself? Like, can Nate just kind of put the fight on with Jake Paul by himself and then just know, oh, well, I know I'm going to win in court? No, he can't. You have to have a bunch of other organizations that are going to knowingly enter into this bout agreement with Nate, knowing the UFC is coming after them. Either the UFC is going to come after them, they're going to come after Nate, they're going to come after whoever. That said, the UFC might not want to do that either, because if they start banging with big companies, the big companies can start digging into how they do contracts in general, which would expose the UFC to a much bigger problem than, Nate Diaz and Francis fighting in other organizations. But here's the thing. If Nate Diaz lets his contract expire, and then he goes and he makes $20 million, $50 million, whatever, and Francis goes and he fights Tyson Fury and he makes $50 million, okay? Do you understand what that's going to do to the future of the UFC's business in terms of how much they have to pay the fighters? Like, Jake Paul can go on Twitter and talk all day long. Guys can go out and be like, it's not fair, I'm not getting paid, whatever. Figueiredo can come out and say he got paid $200,000 for a title defense or whatever it was. And everyone can go, damn, that's really messed up. But you want to know what's going to actually change it? Everyone understanding that they have other options and other people getting paid for real. The UFC is going to have to pay more. What did Nate say? He says they keep paying him more money, or they keep offering more money. They keep offering him more money. The closer we get to the end, they keep offering more money. I don't want more money. I just want out. The closer you get, the more money you get offered, right? The more money you get offered. So anyway, that's a bombshell, dude. So we'll see how it goes. Love you guys.